Al had a neglected childhood. So this is something that's only been said by the creators of the film. You can't find this anywhere in like the actual movie. But yeah, apparently Al's parents fucking sucked and they never let him play with toys as a kid as they do. And so when he later discovered them like, growing up, he became more obsessed with them. And this is why he's so into collecting them and has this big old grand toy store. And I think it's pretty cool how he would kind of create such a cool toy store, like was talked about in the previous layer, for all of the kids to come in and explore in and stuff, just because he couldn't have them as a kid, and is now kind of like sharing them and spreading the love and shit. I mean, really the worst thing that Al did, if you even wanted to like call him an antagonist in any way, was steal Woody from the garage sale, and yeah, that was pretty fucking shitty to do. Like, I mean, granted, he was doing it off, like, desperation, considering that was, like, the one thing that he needed to complete this collection and shit, and get a bunch of money, and he could have, at the very least, like, threw in a few bucks in the money box after he took Woody from it, but, I mean, understandable, but it still was a pretty shitty thing, but, yeah, anyway, that's the backstory to Al. Back when Pete's heel turn was a surprise. So this is a thought-provoking thing to think of. What a redundant sentence. But yeah, like, this is just like kind of something that everybody knows now. And even then, it's like, it was a sled moment. Like, have you ever, like, really stopped to think about how it felt, like, back when the movie first came out in theaters, how people kind of like reacted or didn't expect Pete to end up being the villain to this movie. Like, this is kind of just like an entirely lost thought that I feel like keeps on gradually fading away from time as it goes on, with less and less people remembering or being able to share this experience. Like, for example, I mean, the biggest, like, most prime one I could think of is, like, Darth Vader being Luke's dad, but that's so fucking basic, and kind of like a bit older than Toy Story 2. I mean, I guess it's a bookend since I started Star Wars, but yeah, I like to get like a more personal feeling for this, and something that like hits closer to the time is like the wait between Simpsons season 6 and 7 with Who Shot Mr. Burns. Like, think about how that break was back then, with like nobody knowing who did it and everybody guessing and wondering how it was. Like, that's a feeling that's just, like, totally gone and can't be replicated anymore. Or how about, like, Ocarina of Time before everybody knew Sheik was Zelda. Yeah, sorry for the fucking spoilers, but, like, again, like, something else that, like, you can't really, like, experience, like, in the moment anymore. It was fresh at the time. Like, to try to, like, grab this, like, moment, I tried searching to see if there's, like, any, like, images or videos out there of, like, an actual theater playing Toy Story 2 in 1999, because that would be awesome. But I can't find anything, like, that's just lost to time now, so the closest thing I could find was, like, movie posters from back then on sale on eBay, which is where I got the thing for the thumbnail from. But yeah, this is just something that's really interesting to kind of, like, remember back at and try to, like, regain a totally lost and forgotten feeling. Utility Belt Buzz, Zurg, Pete, and Tour Guide Barbie joining Andy's Toys. Well, here's some more deep thoughts that you have to, like, offhandedly go by for the movie, and this is, like, going into some, like, alternate universe dream shit, but, like, I don't know, like, this is just something that hits, like, real personally for me. Is, like, I'm just thinking of that ending shot that I just, like, put here of, like, the welcome home, and you see, like, all of the toys gathered together, and I don't know, it's just something about these 4 toys where it's like they're the other, like, 4 major ones that are part of the film, and it's like, I don't know, especially now, like, even back then I felt this, but, like, it's a lot more amplified now, but, like, I always felt like, as, like, close and attached to them, like, as, like, the quote-unquote main group of toys, and, like, it always made me sad to see them kind of, like, disband and leave the group, and, like, I especially wonder, like, where their lives went as toys. Like, I mean, Utility Belt and Zurg, like, who the fuck knows what happened to them? Pete, we at least know what happened to him, and it's, like, a good ending. And Tour Guide Barbie, I mean, maybe somebody could have, like, bought her, even though she was, like, kind of, like, outside, like, displays and stuff, but I don't know, like, I always just kind of preferred it, like, if these guys, like, all stayed with, like, the main group, and, like, it just felt more complete and, like, together and happy and safe and stuff, and more complete, and, I mean, Utility Belt Buzz, like, sure, Andy already has a Buzz, but, like, why the fuck not get, like, another edition of it? I mean, I think he was, like, a different color and, like, old animations for it, and then Zurg's the most obvious, he's like the most unique and fucking cool, let's just face it. Imagine if Andy had fucking Zurg, like, come on. Pete, I mean, Pete, he could've, like, completed the whole entire, like, Woody's Roundup gang, of course, and I don't know, like, maybe, like, instead of just, like, throwing him away into a backpack, they could've instead, like, offered him something better to kind of, like, change his mind, as I was, like, talking about the last layer of, like, where he got the whole entire, like, children destroy toys thing from, and then Tour Guide Barbie. Tour Guide Barbie was just, like, super fucking likable and fun and shit, and upbeat, and, I mean, there are Barbies in Andy's room, as we seen in the ending, so, I mean, why not have her join in also? Most optimal and pure 90s nostalgia experience. Well, I've been doing kind of a rough job explaining the past two entries out. How do I do this one, especially running on a little bit of sleep? Well, I mean, the title kind of says it all, and it's just something that you have to, like, personally feel and know yourself. Now, I remember when I posted this chart, somebody was like, what do you mean it's the most optimal and pure noise experience? Lol, it came out in 1999, and that's exactly the point, the fact that it came out at the end of it, so it had all of the years prior to, like, gather the whole entire feeling and just stuff it all into one thing, and, like, this is something that, like, I especially feel during the whole entire scene of Al's Toy Barn. I mean, you can get a sense of how much I fucking love that place, of just how much I've been talking about it, but, like, I don't know, particularly the scene where, like, all of, like, the balls bounce out and, like, it chases them, and they have to drive away, just how colorful and fun that looks, and, like, the whole entire layout of the store just captures, like, the fucking feel of, like, being a kid then, and exploring this, like, grand dream, like, fucking toy store. And, like, it was that scene in particular when I was, like, rewatching the movie again that, like, really put me in the mood and inspired me to be, like, I want to make an Iceberg chart on Toy Story 2, and, like, I guess you also just kind of, like, get the feel from, like, Andy's room also, and, I don't know, just the whole movie in general, it just captures the feel of, like, kind of what made, like, mundane things special back then, like, particularly if you were, like, young at the time, and just captures that feeling really well, and I feel like that's also what enhances what's going to be, like, the very last entry to this Iceberg chart. And yeah, like, I've even heard people say that, like, Al's apartment just, like, oozes of, like, everything nostalgic to them, despite just being, like, a regular, basic-ass, boring place, and I don't know, I feel like that's also why, like, this movie is just, like, so special to look back at also. Like, they just kind of, like, nailed it on the head with everything that involves, like, toys and, like, childlike wonder and stuff, and, again, I'll probably talk about that more in the final entry if I'm not, like, distracted just explaining that. But yeah, this is definitely a more weird, but hopefully interesting one if I wasn't mumbling over myself too badly. And next up is the last layer, even if this already kind of felt like a finale, but in that one, we're going to be talking about the most obscure things I could think of to add for this, so I'll see you then.